Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
From the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not black and white. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
Okay, a couple minutes late. It's 9:33 p.m. Mountain Time. This is Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Space is fake AF, which remains true. Antarctica is flat. Maybe it's curved. I can't tell you. I've never been to space. And space, insofar as it's been depicted, is a cartoon. We do live in a literal Disney universe. Welcome to Planet Netflix. And we've had a lot of overlap lately. Like glaringly obvious examples of predictive programming, where we're predicting the predictive programming with regularity here. Like we know what's going on. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it seems like Candace Owens has really kind of caught up on things. She's up to speed on all the fringy stuff, but she never calls anything fake. But she's kind of now the standard bearer for crazy. She's like David Icke and Alex Jones rolled into one, a totally manufactured Poe. But I appreciate her existence because anytime they call us media skeptics crazy, we can just point in her direction. She gets a lot of stuff right, though. But what they get wrong is what they omit. These clever types like Bart Zabrell, they lie by omission. They'll say, oh, the moon landing's fake. Here's 50 reasons why. But they'll never use the same level of scrutiny and direct it at the ISS like a laser beam, which would just take it down in the minds of the believers. Joined by Let's Go, LAC, Frank Murr, 144,200. This is crazy. That name is very long. There should be a cap on it, like they used to cap tweets. Dinah South, Truman B, Serene, randomly caught alive. I'm going to try to maintain a schedule. It's just that I decided to fund this whole operation through publishing and art, which was my intention for a couple of years now. And I'm finally there. The eBay store was in the red. Like it was breaking even barely for the longest time, but it's finally picked up a number of regular bidders. In addition, the IPS Insider is in circulation, technically. The first stack will arrive here on Friday and will immediately be sent out. Not just issue 1, but issue 2 is in production, and I'm going to order that as soon as I receive, well, actually after the Super Bowl. I want to include my assessment of the Super Bowl Babylon fertility rite thing they're going to do in the middle of it. I want to talk about that in the next issue. So issue 1, done deal. Issue 2, in progress. And issue 3 will begin immediately after. There's a glut of content. We live in an info glut. This deluge. And it's super entertaining, to be honest. I'm looking through my headlines, and the least entertaining thing is a story I'm covering right now that I'm personally investigating. Let me go ahead and bring that up. Let's talk about Garrett Ziegler's Dead Cat Albatross. Channel nemesis Marcus Goldfinch has a business partner who claims that the FBI was trying to threaten him and his family by putting a dead cat on his porch with a threat, some kind of weird rambling letter. And I noticed it, but I kind of let it pass for a little while. But then it occurred to me, if this was true, then who did it? Because somebody killed a cat. There's a victim here. There's a crime that needs to be investigated. And I thought about it. It's like, well, either he killed a cat or he found a dead cat. And whose dead cat did he find for his little PR stunt? Designed to raise money for their lawsuit, for their legal defense. They're being sued by Hunter Biden, and they've already paid out $500K, so it seems like they're desperate. So anyway, nothing against Garrett Ziegler personally, but he's business partners with somebody I'm suing for hacking. The same thing that they're getting sued for, no surprise. But anyway, I thought about this cat thing, and I decided to look into it, and I contacted the local police department there. And I talked to the chief of police, small town, 2,000 people, And I had a conversation with them about this news outlet trying to garner attention and publicity with a dead cat. And I said, potentially they killed a cat for clicks. And he said he would look into it. A few hours later, he called me back, and there were no reports of animal abuse or threats. Nothing was reported to the police, nothing at all, on those days or since. So now there's still a mystery here. And if the cat was killed, how was it killed? Was it poisoned? Was it bludgeoned? There has to be a necropsy, I think they call it. And I'm not letting this go. I contacted PETA, a couple of other organizations, the which I did, and I had to list all the witnesses. So when I say witnesses, I mean who can attest to this thing. Well, the George News, which is the newspaper that Marcus Goldfinch hides behind, they have a White House press pass. George News reported on it, and they published a picture of this cat and this letter, which I transcribed using Grok. And I'm under the impression that they manufactured this. I think it's a psyop, like swatting yourself or claiming you've been swatted. But my problem with this whole issue is the cat. This Cat Doe. I want justice for Cat Doe. And I started the process of having this looked into. So that's where we're starting. That's just what I wanted to get to here, is that one of the articles in the IPS Insider is the story of Garrett Ziegler's dead cat. And one of the things that is going to typify this publication is a lot of independent investigative journalism. All right, joined here by Shannon Jones, Mazel, Mango Penguins, Oki, Pippi Langstruff. Thank you for joining. Ears up, Mango Penguins. Listening to past shows is not the same. You know, I was actually live this morning in a parking lot, and the sun was shining on my phone, and it overheated. Like, it was like I was breathing fire or something. It just melted in my hands. And then the video terminated. But I'm trying to free up time. The only reason I've been held back is I'm trying to I'm trying to get all of my inventory listed. And I have probably 50 paintings just stacked over here, very close to completion. Some of them are done. And I want to have my listings out 2 weeks in advance at all times, so I can kind of predict things. Last year through eBay, I sold 492 paintings. I think I can triple that this year because it wasn't my main focus. But now it is a big part of my focus. Okay, let's continue here. We have the IPR points of interest. Don Jr., duck poacher. Now, this story is not that remarkable. It's happened before, but Don Jr. is in Italy, and he shoots some amber-colored duck. Well, he doesn't have a hunting license, and it's like not legal for him to be out there shooting ducks. So, of course, I'm thinking there's got to be some deeper meaning to this. So let's first look at this. Don Jr. is surrounded by an array of dead birds, including an unusual amber-colored duck, which he says is a rather uncommon bird in the area. I'm not even sure what it is. Now, if anybody in the elite is into hunting humans, it's Don Jr. He's the exact type of person I can imagine chasing naked people through the woods, shooting at them. Probably cannibalizing. Okay, so here's what was reported. Given that the shooting of the protected species is a crime, also if it's true, among those that participated was Donald Trump Jr., son of the president, it's a serious matter, unacceptable. It's a protected environment. We hope he'll be prosecuted like any other citizen. So that's the main part of the story. But I thought there's got to be something else. There's a couple of themes here. One is the duck. You know, like the word duck. Then you got the name Donald and the obvious connotation there. But the gun thing. So if you kind of put it all together, there's some kind of subtextual messaging here. And then I remembered, if you take the image of Donald Duck and you turn it upside down, it quite literally turns into Donald Trump. I'm pretty sure you've seen it, but I made note of it here. It might be nothing, But I don't think there are any coincidences on the world stage. So let's take a look here. There's so much going on. Magaza, we'll talk about Magaza. And then someone found a recycled bit of photography. They recycled one of the shots from the Dalton, Ohio mass shooting. We have questions about whether it was a plane or a missile. Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's Donald Duck, and you turn him upside down, and it's Donald Trump. Not hard to see here. This is not pareidolia. This is just very sophisticated predictive programming. Verkgen says, where can I get the new publication? It's going to be sold through all my sites. I'll have a link. And, of course, you're going to be getting a newsletter as soon as it's released. I'm not going to be ordering big quantities right away, but it's going to gradually increase depending on how much it costs to ship everything. You know, shipping is the main limiting factor here. It's expensive. But, oh, by the way, you know, I've been hit up by a lot of anti-vaxxers and stuff. If you want to send me cult literature, my P.O. box is posted at the main website. Go to infiniteplainsociety.com or ips.monster. Mango says, I watched 2001 A Space Odyssey the other day. It's like seeing it for the first time. What a trip. I may have to watch it again through Otto Hoaxer's eyes because we frequently cite Stanley Kubrick's work, and I'm doing a deep dive on Chartword's analysis of Stanley Kubrick's work in the service of government mind control. You know, Kubrick is one of the directors of the 20th century and 21st. His influence is still being felt. We're still living in Kubrick's vision in many ways. And I think Space Odyssey is a key to understanding all of it. It has to do with the monolith and the merging two into one, the merging of our lived experience with the screen, the monolithic vision by the worldview monopoly, which we're all just born into, more or less, but it's your internalized Truman Show. And the name Kubrick, I mean, there's so much about Kubrick you can talk about. There's this whole area of research, Kubrickology. They talk about this all the time, but it would be a mistake to look at him as the only metascriptor. Or see, the thing is, the people who noticed that Kubrick revealed stuff about Apollo 11, they seem to think he's some kind of a whistleblower. That Eyes Wide Shut, he was revealing that the elite are a bunch of creeps that run around in masks in their big mansions. But they never really get to the real purpose of his work. They seem to think he's a whistleblower and they silenced him because of his revelations, but they're missing how much of his work foreshadows other events. In other words, it's not just looking back at Apollo 11. The same movie, The Shining, for example, has more allusions to events that haven't happened yet, specifically 9/11. And this is a feature of his work all throughout. But it's also true that he's not the only one. There are so many so-called, quote, metascriptors. In fact, Tom Clancy was brought up today because Trump is going to the Super Bowl. And there happens to be a bit of, and I have it here somewhere, I have a bit of predictive programming, which I'll play here. It's from a movie called Brothers Grimsby. This came out in 2016. Trump plans to attend Super Bowl 2025, becoming the first sitting president to do so. And I uploaded a video to my main page, and I sent it out on the blog. But you can see it here. It's a scene where this individual in the field accidentally fires a gun, and it shoots Trump in the mouth after first blowing through somebody's shoulder. As you can see, the bullet goes into Trump's mouth. I don't know the full story. I haven't seen the movie. I don't plan on watching it. It looks that bad. American Fathers says, Millennium Hotel near the World Trade Center is the black monolith. More than meets the eye is their slogan. Well, I alluded to a chart word, and his contention, and I plan to show this on my deep dive, is that the Monolith Hotel down there at Ground Zero is alluded to in 2001: A Space Odyssey when they show the monolith unearthed on the moon, and the excavation zones look the same. The ramp looks the same. So Apollo 11, 9/11, Ground Zero connection right there. And then I think there's also the case that if you look at the Hilton logo, because it's a Hilton monolith, it looks like twin towers with the flight paths, the planes going into it. Not a coincidence. But I'll go into detail about all of this on the upcoming deep dive. Thank you, Marcel. He came in here with the box of the titanium blue wrenches. So if you think you can lurk in here and not be spotlit, it's impossible. Somebody might put a wrench in your hands. So thank you again. Kate Emma, Day Raven O, Neuro Jack, Deborah Irvin, and Verkjun have all received the blue wrenches. All right, Super Bowl's coming up. That's also a big deal. The superb owl. The Super Bowl 59 has a halftime show with Kendrick Lamar and someone named, I think, is it Trey, the creator? I'll have to double check that. I plan to release an article about it beforehand. I have a little bit of a prophecy as to what they're going to be doing for the halftime show based on the previous halftime shows. My contention being that this is a pagan ritual with identifiable ceremonial trappings, and it's certainly part of the general astrotheological template, but I would even place it more specifically in the realm of Thelema, which happens to be part of the DNA of the religion of Nasatology. Nasatology is the dominant world religion, and it's a combination of science fiction, mystery Babylon, and movies. You know, these movies and simulations to create contemporary myths, to bring back the old archetypes to kind of replace. But it's all built on an ancient template, in my opinion. I think we're in a dark age in many ways. All right, let's see here. Ted Stryker, thank you. Christopher Lees, let's go. We're talking about blue wrenches being handed out here. So if you're in the chat, if you want to get in the chat, go to ips.monster, join any chat room, and you can be among the elite here, such as Clump, Rhodius, It's Snoopy, Michelle Kastner, Austin 108, Portal Complex, Michael Jones, Sit Down, Gem 7 Angel, Benton, All the World's a Stage, Evolvement, AJ 206, Lucid Streams, Glenn Bush, WOPR 3354, and Matt Malone, all blue wrenchers. American Father says, Kendrick mocking Jesus with the crown of thorns. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. There's this Christ Magdalene dynamic that is brought up in these various ceremonies. This great rite that I want to highlight as it pertains to the Super Bowls, and this one in particular. And Kendrick Lamar, I've spoken of him before. I have a whole mind map on the Black Christ archetype and the martyr cult of BLM, which we'll be talking about. All right, let's see here. Moving on. So again, yeah, Trump's going to attend the Super Bowl. First sitting president to do so. And there's what I just showed you from Brothers Grimsey. And in A Sum of All Fears, which is credited with having predictions for 9/11, the president is at a Super Bowl and a nuke goes off. And if you think about it, what has been going on for the last week, the final week of January, but drills for some kind of a nuclear incident? So this has been something we should have expected. I mean, I am expecting. So I have some notes here. So, for example, the eagle and the arrow, the broken arrow. Broken arrow is a reference to the next one. So there's been 32 incidents of missing nukes, stolen, some kind of disaster. There's been 32 documented. We're waiting for 33, but code is broken arrow. And there may be something in it with the whole Kansas City Chiefs arrowhead, the eagle, and of course Philadelphia Eagles. We had the small plane hit in Philly. A lot of people have picked up some interesting subtext here. And I'm under the presumption that these plane crashes have all been fake, by the way. I mean, think about it. The plane hitting the Black Hawk. The Black Hawk was doing a continuity of government doomsday drill. So they're doing a drill and something happens. No, that happens with every major psyop. Oh, we were doing a drill and then became live. Or we were doing a drill and then the real thing happened next door. No, we all know what that is. All right, we've already received 100 messages in the Restream chat. So who's winning the Superb Owl? Good question. Now, I've made these connections before. I suggested that Super Bowl 47, which was the so-called blackout bowl, where it went dark for 33 minutes, I suggested that would foreshadow what happens during Trump's second term, when he's number 47. 33 minutes of blackness, darkness, it's when it goes, like, EMP is kind of intimated here. Going through your comments, I have a lot of comments. Okay, so Lloyd Miller says, they're making an attack on air travel, which is part of the green agenda. Air travel uses too much oil and increases CO2. Yeah, I should mention, if you believe in climate change, you shouldn't fly. If you believe in chemtrails, you shouldn't fly. That doesn't leave very many people, though. It's like one or the other. And if you opt out of both sides hate your guts. Lloyd Miller also says, I'm not concerned about whether events are faked or real. I'm more interested in having the correct theory as to what the ruling class is trying to achieve by faking it, maintaining existing divisions or promoting societal evolution or transformation in a particular direction. Valid point there. I think it is important to note that it is more fake than real. And if you downplay the fakery, you're missing the point. If you're not auto-hoaxing the media, whether you're mainstream or alternative, I mean, if you're not skeptical, you're wasting your time. You're just being indoctrinated. You're being programmed. To address his comment, though, I would say that they're making it look like they're advancing some crazy societal evolution, progressive utopianism. But at the same time, you have the other side pulling towards the MAGA, the idealized past. And MAGA's more pronounced and open about it now. They just want to go back before civil rights, before feminism, before the Civil War. And then the progressives want to go into something brave new world. And they want this tug of war, but no side's going to ever win. It's the tension they create. It's not going to end. It's the perpetual war. So might as well stop caring. A drag queen at bar in New Orleans simulates assassinating President Trump. Now, I haven't been able to corroborate this. Somebody said that the bar was called Oz, and the shooter does look like the witch from the Wizard of Oz. And why this is significant, if you've seen Wicked, the witch has some antagonism toward the wizard, and at the end, she flies away while blasting the Emerald City, and it goes dark. Like an EMP. And it even looks like an EMP, like electricity in the sky behind her and everything. So I'm thinking, Emerald City is a Seattle reference. So I'm not quite sure, but Wicked Witch shooting Trump. All right, let's move on. I'm going through my comments. Need military and crash survivor role players. So role players will replicate friendly and enemy personnel survivors of a plane crash. Your work hours will range from 1 to 4 hours each day. You'll be needed February 2nd to 6th around Dugway Proving Grounds. Interesting. Role players will be paid a daily rate plus meal allowance. Transportation, be over 18, authorized to work in the U.S., former military service highly preferred. Military crash survivor role players. Well, before the plane hit the Black Hawk, they were doing water rescue drills on the water out there. And as Irrational Exuberance noted, the photograph, the still shot of the drill, happened to look like the cover of Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg. Very strange. All these strange coincidences. But anyway, crisis actors wanted. I think that if you were to apply regularly as a crisis actor, at some point, they're going to contact you. Somebody will find out, okay, this person's trustworthy. They're going to size you up. They're going to look in your background. and they're going to maybe say, hey, you want to make a little extra money? And then maybe you get into the big leagues. Like David Hogg's in politics now. He made it all the way. You know, I have this video of David Hogg. It's a compilation where 1 minute he's like he's hiding in a closet during a shooting, and he says it's like 2 something in the afternoon. And then later in a separate interview he says he was at home during the shooting, but he jumped on his bicycle and raced over to the school to cover what happened. 2 conflicting stories. I know, but that's another thing that is interesting here. We talked about Kubrick and the 2 into 1. When I talk about this, I mean the merging of fiction with reality in our minds by merging the news with manufactured news, simulations. The 2 into 1 in the movie, it's the sun and the moon, you know, the whole eclipse thing. And I think that's what we're looking at. The world stage represents the merging of the 2. And here you have a fictional character put into the news in a simulated event, and now he's like stepped out of the screen, and now he exists. He will go down in the history books as a real person, no matter what. And this is an important point, because someone like Donald Trump is just a glorified crisis actor. I mean, he's a great crisis actor. He's actually a competent magician. He did a great magic trick on 7/13/2024. But these are essentially creations of a production company I call the PSYOP Entertainment Complex. Real people playing out these historic roles that have been written for them in advance. I mean, look at Elon Musk. I mean, that guy might as well be Truman in a Truman Show. But he's something of a witting participant. I read somewhere that he doesn't even have the security clearance to go backstage at SpaceX. Like, he could be a Truman. And he might not even know that space is fake, which would be hilarious. Druth says, what do you think about Trump pulling out the chair for Benjamin Netanyahu and the U.S. occupying Gaza for Israel? Yeah, Ma Gaza. Trump promises big things, but it's usually a bluff. It's called future faking. Manipulators do it, and authoritarian dictators do it. Cults of personality, cult leaders do it. So they promise you heaven. And of course, he's going to make all these promises. Oh, I'm going to get rid of the deep state. Yeah, I'm going to chop the heads off all the Democrats, especially Hillary Clinton and Obama at Gitmo. I'm going to save the children. You know, they make all these promises and it never comes true. But people never learn. Joined by Erto. Thank you for joining. Gondola Wish says, Gene Rosen is a fantasy or most, a dream that will never come to pass. Well, most of the actors we see are terrible. I used to say they all graduated from the Gene Rosen School of Crisis Acting. But crisis actors are becoming less and less relevant. These bigger stories are driven by celebrities, 1, and then 2, they can be replaced by AI, not just individuals with bad histories working out deals with the feds, which is usually the case. I mean, I don't think you can just apply to be one. You have to be integrated into the system. By the way, there are many violent threats on Blue Sky targeting Elon Musk. I mean, these are psychopaths. You don't need pose on the left. They are quite literally crazy when it comes to violence. But there's a whole bunch of posts here. A lot of people are mentioning Luigi. I've seen Luigi Mangione shirts for sale at the mall. Like, it's no big deal. But when I mentioned that movie, The Madness, it came out, #1 movie, I watched it because I said, this is going to tell us about the future because it's propaganda. And it did, in fact, have the whole scenario of the CEO bad guy getting shot. And I connected it to Musk way before Vanity Fair did in their review. People are months behind my review of this movie because that character, the CEO in The Madness refers to the mind viruses that he finances that cause people to turn politically violent. We're talking about what I call Disease X. So this billionaire is financing racist Nazis to pump out propaganda in order to incite violence throughout society. That's The Madness. Well, he gets killed. And the whole point of the movie is the main character shoots a bad guy and nobody cares because he shot a racist who is, big on the internet. So the neighborhoods protect him. Just like There's some article I saw where they were saying that if Luigi had only escaped to Seattle, he would have been protected. And that is the attitude. So this demonization of Musk, and Musk being this close to power and the damage he's doing with Doge, all of this was foreshadowed in the madness. Because when the movie came out, he was still kind of just goofing around, acting awkward around Trump, but now he's in this other mode where, yeah, he is incurring the wrath of the left, and this is all by design. Okay, what do we have here? How Luigi Mangione inspired trans women who tried to kill GOP leaders. Now, this is fake. I mean, because the Luigi thing is a psyop. And you can prove it's a psyop if it's all story, no substance, ready-made political agenda, and they already have a movement built around it. And we said at the time, this is going to wake up the lefties to start rioting. And there's already plans for protests in 50 states. So it's already happening. There's already been examples of protests shutting down highways in Los Angeles, the usual stuff, but they're getting started early this year. I mean, it's only February. Usually it's in the summer, but a Massachusetts woman who told police she went to the Capitol to kill members of Trump's cabinet was influenced by Luigi, the man charged with fatally shooting the CEO of United Healthcare. Riley English says that she was on a mission and had been thinking about this for a while because of Luigi Mangione. So here's the question, though, because generally I look at the whole copycat phenomenon as fake, which is very convenient. They convince you it can happen. Now they can just invent another headline, and now it's a real thing. But when it comes to lefties, are they really influenced by the media to emulate things that are fake? Are fake events inciting real events? If so, who's culpable? And I think it's an interesting question, but I do think there are instances, and I think it's mostly a left-wing phenomenon. I think they have to agitate or fabricate right-wing patsies, but I think that there is real fundamentalism. I call it media fundamentalism. I often talk about the political horseshoe, and I don't make the equivalency between left and right, but for the most part, there are parallels. But the difference is the left's relationship with power is fundamentally different. By the way, I put these for sale on Bonfire. I don't know if anybody's buying. This is Louis Che, like as in Che Guevara, Luigi Che Guevara. I used an AI thing, just full disclosure. And I was trying to get the best mashup of Che Guevara and Luigi. And I came up with Luigi, and I put it on Amazon. I put it on Bonfire. And so for the next 14 days, you can purchase one of these. And they're also on Amazon. Just search Luiche. Jay Dick says they were at all the capitals today. Okay. They were all at the state capitals. We're going to have to document it. And that's one of the things that the IPR Press Club is about. I mean, in 2020, we followed the riots. We had many people at riots. We checked out the empty hospitals, and I intend to do the same. In fact, just an update, a couple status updates here. So the tabloids going into circulation and the new press passes have been ordered. I'm not going to be putting them up for sale until they're in my hands here, but they're en route. Okay, let's move on. So I'm seeing a lot of people being very skeptical about this Trump event. A lot of people. And it doesn't matter in many ways, because if the people who are noticing it's fake are still in the alternative media box, then it doesn't matter. If you're in the sea of irrelevance, something that's true gets drowned out. That's why I say we have to keep our quarantine. We have this raft, and we're in agreement, at least in terms of how we process media in a very active way, suspending judgment. We have a methodology here. We don't want to just let every hysterical conspiracy theorist on the raft. We would be outnumbered and we would sink. So they're lost. So anyway, JB Thinking said, remember at this point in the stage production, they supposedly had no idea if there were multiple shooters. The SS agent should have been fired for allowing the target to stand tall and put his hand in the air. Now, this is a great point, and someone even claims they can hear the woman saying something like ready, like as a signal to the photographer. I've already pointed out that this photograph is based on the Braveheart cover, and they called him Braveheart in the New York Post right after. It's just too perfect, and the Mel Gibson connections go deep. You know, he directed Flight Risk, which I just alluded to a little while ago, and he's huge in the Q community. He's Trump's ambassador to Hollywood. He was connected to the Burning House psyop. He's been on Rogan, so obviously he's part of the big production. But this is obviously staged. And I said here, if you think the shooting wasn't just a magic trick and possibly the greatest PR stunt of all time, then you are a caveman. And by caveman, I mean Plato's cave. And if you still believe the news, you're in Plato's cave, you're a caveman. And I'm not trying to be offensive, but, you know, the beginning of wisdom, I think it's Confucius or someone, is to call things by their right names. And, you know, if people still have their heads in the box, we have to define it. That's why I say we have the MSM, MSM plus, whether it's Woketown or Trutherville, and then you have the subtractive view, MSM minus. There is a box and there are subsets. You're not outside of the big box just because you're alt media. That's one of the biggest tricks. So Trump orders Iran obliterated if it kills him. Wants Palestinians out of Gaza. He wants Iran obliterated if it kills him. It's like this is all getting really intriguing here, considering the plan to attend the Super Bowl. And I had even suggested that the second shooter, now if you recall, after the shooting with Thomas Matthew Crook, he's on a golf course and Ryan Routh is there. Ryan Routh, who had been on TV previously on BBC, just like that guy who drove the truck through the crowd. I mean, even Thomas Crooks was on a Blackhawk commercial. But anyway, with regard to this, so Trump is on the golf course, there's a shooter in the bushes, and they stop it. Well, the Time magazine from that month on 9/11 released a cover where Trump is in a sand pit, and it says, Trump's in trouble. There's a big red flag behind him, which I think is a reference to red flag laws. But anyway, the shooter's name was Ryan, and I said at the time, it's an interesting kind of an anagram for Iran, and Iran had put out a video where it was Trump on a golf course targeted by a drone. So I kind of thought that Iran has been in the picture here for some time. Now, just an update here again, since we're talking about sum of all fears, Trump at a stadium, a large-scale nuclear training exercise to take place in New York. Public need not be alarmed. So it's just a drill, just like the drill they were doing with the Black Hawk helicopter. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm making it a point to go through comments. And Flat Bob wrote me to say, this is kind of a tangent, kind of a parallel universe here. We're going into a different timeline. If, this is Flat Bob, it was Berenstain Bears, not Berenstain. I don't care what anyone says, I'll die on this hill. I absolutely know for 100% fact it was Berenstain. I used to be an amazing speller. I made straight A's in school. Spelling was my strongest subject. I remember staring at books for dozens of minutes at a time all year long. I always got tripped up because I was sure that's how it was pronounced. I knew how to pronounce stain. So if it was spelled A-I-N, I would have known. Berenstain. The E-I-N threw me off because that's how it's not pronounced. I know for sure it was Berenstain Bears. My 2 cents. I think I just had a Mandela effect because the first time he wrote this, he said, I thought he said that I will die in this well. But no, he said, I'll die on this hill. I wouldn't die on the Mandela effect hill. I mean, there are worse hills to die on, but that one's been roundly debunked. But some people feel strongly about it, and I will say this, to Flat Bob's credit, he does in fact believe. He does in fact have that memory. I will not deny him. He does in fact have a memory of it being Berenstain. He does have a memory. But here's the trick. And this is how it works. When you recall something, or somebody asks you to recall like an old logo or something, your original memory is actually affected. It's changed. It's altered by the more recent recollection. And the context of the recent recollection can affect the previous memory and oftentimes replace the previous memory. This is the reason why so many people get locked up for faulty eyewitness testimony. It's called the misinformation effect, and it can be artificially introduced through propaganda, through the interrogator bias, and through Mandela effect proponents who present things as this binary of, do you remember this or this? So what's happening is you're actually imagining something while simultaneously remembering it. What you imagine replaces what you remembered. So you actually create a false memory. So now your memory of Stain is real, but it actually comes after Stein. Your false memory replaced your first one. It's an easy mix up. It's like somebody reaches into your head and just mixes up the files in the filing cabinet. It is a big mind F. It is technically gaslighting. Trump made Mel Gibson the head of the LA rebuild, almost like the movie Mad Max. Ooh, good one. Good one. Very metascripty. Very, very much. And Mel Gibson has always been the conspiracy guy. He did the conspiracy theory movie. He got pulled over drunk once and he ranted about Jews, if you recall. So he's always been that guy. And that is his role. He is a skilled director. I mean, I'm not taking away from their skill, their movies, but it's in the service of Psywar. Top picture is Philly. The bottom three are from missiles. A lot of people have pointed this out. Now, I want to know, when it comes to these psyops, when it happens in your place of business, you're obviously working with the government. So, for example, you had Patrick Crusius shooting up a Walmart. Well, every one of these Walmart cameras would have recorded it. You'd get to see him changing into cargo pants, if you remember that continuity error. But we never see that footage. We only hear what people say they saw, but you never see it. And I would have to conclude that that company is complicit and they're allowing the facility to be used for a, quote, drill, for an event. They're completely in on it. And therefore they're getting paid. So I look at a photo like this and I wonder, Macy's, Ross, Sprouts, like, are they in on it? Are they getting a cut? Since their signs are front and center, backdrop where the plane hits. Thirst for Truth found this. Active shooter injury, Ohio warehouse shooting live. Now this is wild. So the Ohio warehouse shooting live, I didn't follow up on this today. And I don't say everything's fake. It depends on the body count. Higher body counts, generally fake. Lower body counts that are believable. It just depends. There are indicators of a hoax, not difficult to note. For example, political agendas, political divisiveness, celebrities chime in, manifestos published within hours. There's many indicators that suggest it's not authentic. But in this case, I didn't pay attention to this Ohio warehouse shooting. However, what Thirst for Truth noticed is they showed a photograph of a bunch of shoes piled outside of the Ned Pepper's whiskey bar. So there was a couple of shootings that weekend. You had Dayton, Ohio, Ned Pepper's, and then you had the Garlic Festival shooting. So 2 shootings back to back. It was a very busy weekend for us here. But one of the things of the Dayton, Ohio shooting was there was just a big pile of shoes in the middle of the road. And that was to make you think that people are running so hard from the shooter that their shoes are falling off. Like all the people who got away left their shoes. And this has been a common occurrence, and it's been noticed, it's been mocked, it's been pointed out by many people. Many great compilations, Ole Demigard has like a whole presentation on the shoes. It's kind of a running joke. And I look at this as implausible. Like look at racers. They line up to go run a race, and they run as fast as they can, fastest runners in the world. Their shoes don't fly off. So how come these normies are able to run out of their shoes like Looney Tunes characters? But again, it's all propaganda. And I think it's a propaganda tool that maybe resonates with other things, like they'll show you. I have some ideas as why they would choose as an image a bunch of shoes piled up. It sends the idea of Holocaust, which is a common theme. You want to attach these psyops to other events. They call it like an epidemic of mass shootings, the mass shooting generation. They have to dress it up. All right, let's continue here. Japan experts want 3-day shelter in place after nuke. Now, some in our Discord server have noticed some predictive programming connecting Bane to Trump and some of the recent statements by Trump. So I'll probably get to that if I can tonight. I'm not suggesting that he's going to be shot. I don't think that's in the cards right now. I mean, it kind of is, but I'm more inclined to think it's got to go along with the timeline as presented by JL. Although, it's kind of interesting to think about now. Because Super Bowl 55, you had The Weeknd, who had the head wound thing and all the bandages, and no one knew what it meant. Well, the people on the inside know. And you could connect it to Kubrick, which we have to mind map the stuff out, but it's super connected. But The Weeknd's head wound thing, I think, is an allusion to what is being foreshadowed here. The last Super Bowl, you had Brock Purdy as the quarterback, and for some reason, everyone is asking him if he's ever been told he looks just like Lee Harvey Oswald. So Lee Harvey Oswald, referenced in the context of the Super Bowl, the quarterback. Then you have this Super Bowl performance with this individual who's grotesquely reenacting a head wound. There's some kind of story unfolding here. So Trump showing up at the Super Bowl does kind of stand out as kind of meta-scripty. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen the video for Dawn of a New Day by One-Eyed Jack and the Shells, I highly recommend it. I posted a link in the newsletters, and I sent it to the AI Film Festival. They have an open call right now for videos between 1 and 10 minutes generated with text to video. And this is text to video, so I submitted it. We'll see what they think. And I did use text to video to generate some of the cartoon elements, like the magic bullets flying through the air. Lucid Stream says soul equals soul. Oh, like, yes, interesting. Yeah, there's some significance to single shoes as well that has been noted. Nicholas Fuentes, and I don't know why anybody pays attention to him. I'm pretty sure I blocked him like 50 times, but he's being force memed. It's like they beam these things like into the back of your skulls through your eyes. They want this seared in your consciousness, like these characters must matter to you. Anyway, Nick Fuentes said that when Netanyahu gave Trump a golden pager, that it's actually a death threat. If you remember the exploding pager psyop, which is all fake. But anyway, that is kind of interesting. I see a lot of talk along these lines. Let's go ahead and just watch for a minute here what we've discussed before. These actors who merge with the real world and then become more important than us. This is one such individual. I'm just going to let it play through. It's not a long video. This is put together by Brad Zerbo. And you're just going to hear conflicting stories, like wildly conflicting stories.
His father is a retired FBI agent, so he recognized immediately that this was a gun. This wasn't firecracker.
This wasn't firecrackers. This is something too. It wasn't firecrackers and it wasn't a drill. And he mentions that they were doing fire drills that very morning. Anyway, let's go ahead and just play it. It's a little bit of a flashback.
This wasn't a drill. His teacher ushered him into a closet as the shooting was taking place. He thought to himself, if he and his classmates die in this closet, what would their stories be? What would we know about them? So here's what he did.
So right now we're in a school.
An active shooter.
So he's doing interviews in the closet during a shooting, which would probably get them killed. Very dumb move. But again, he was ushered into the closet when the shooting happened. Now, here we go to a separate interview at his house, and they ask him to describe that day. And his description is wildly at variance with that. Let me pull this up here. There's a 4-minute video here. It just goes through all the different versions of it. But here he specifically says he was at home when it happened, and he had to take the bike to get to school. So which was it? Did your teacher usher you into the closet, or...
Got my camera and got on my bike and rode as fast as I could 3 miles from my house.
So he rode 3 miles to the school from his house on his bike when he heard the gunshots. So which is it? And those are stories that are so different from one another that I don't think you could possibly suggest that he just misspoke or he misremembered. Like, these are just way too different. Is Russia gearing up for space war? Russia is preparing to leave the ISS at the end of the decade, but faces hurdles in building its own replacement. Since 2022, Russia has launched satellites with clear defense applications, including reconnaissance, electronic warfare, early warning systems, anti-satellite weapons, military-grade weapons designed to destroy satellites. Quote, space is becoming another front for the global defense competition, and Russia's not sitting this one out. Their growing collaborations, like launching satellites for Iran, suggests they're building an alliance in space that aligns with their geopolitical strategy, rather than relying on Western-led initiatives. So this is from 2 different articles. One article saying they're not going to be able to stay in the ISS for a lot of reasons. They're going to fall out of the space race. But on the other hand, for the last few years, they've been preparing for space war. In 2024, January 19th, the movie ISS came out, and it was about Russia nuking America, and it goes back and forth, mutually assured destruction. And on the ISS, they have to fight for control of the ISS. And since that movie has come out, there has been some hostilities, sort of, between the two sides. If you read between the lines, specifically discrepancies over accounts regarding a hole drilled into the side of the ISS. And then second, there have been some kind of problems with the cosmonaut side where they've had to put a hatch up separating the two. And that specifically happened in the movie. So the idea is there's a falling out between Russia and America, and the ISS is now kind of a contested turf. So just a heads up there, Space Wars is kind of still in the background. Now, I don't know if I have to play this. I have a lot of great clips. Maybe I'll just save it for a later date of hair in parabolic flights versus hair in space. But we're just preaching to the choir. Trump says no survivors after American Airlines plane collides with helicopter during approach to D.C. airport. Synchromorpheus notes to Leo Pirate, you're on target with your assessment. Trump just quoted Bain. There are no survivors. And this is exactly what is said by Bain in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Rises 2012. We can see the clip here. The plane scene with the context in mind, Bain taking out the CIA and crashing the plane, quote, no survivors, and the fire rises. The Batman universe, as a fictional universe, has been used as a tool of propaganda. You know, talk about how the mainstream media presents us with a closed system. And by that, I mean it's a fictional universe. It's a closed system of ideas, and it has a limited number of writers, and of course it has a filtration system, sort of like the Marvel universe, or again, the Batman universe, the DC Comics universe. Well, these fictional universes are just literary constructs, but it does in fact accurately describe how our media works because of what it omits and what it assumes to be true. Every foundational argument it begins with. You know, for example, they all assume these weapons of mass destruction are real, that America and Russia are actually enemies in space in some level, that they're not all cooperating in a psyop. And I talk about these fictional universes or in these ways because we're talking about closed systems of information. And one of the ways, and we've been talking about this for some time, one of the ways that they package ideas is through popular fiction. And so Batman, Joker, they've been hoarded out to the PSYOP entertainment complex. These characters, the movies, everything they do is geared towards conditioning the public for future fake news. Case in point, Joker. And I have many examples of the connections between Joker and this Trump head wound thing and other events, but specifically the character of Joker and the narrative of class warfare, of kill the rich, the movement of clowns dressing up like the Joker, rioting, etc. It has a striking parallel to the whole story with Luigi Mangione, for example. And one of my arguments here is that they pre-sell us on stories, on the things they're going to simulate. They get people to take sides in advance. I mean, I just thought it was incredible how quickly and lockstep people were by taking sides and suggesting that Luigi was a hero. And I think that it's because they've been conditioned to see this particular dynamic in a certain way. And it's all just programming, is my point. All right, we already talked about this is it. Sum of All Fears nuke clip. I'm not going to play it, but Sum of All Fears has a great deal of significance to the big story. If you haven't read Jewish Space Lasers by Mike Rothschild, he also wrote Q, The Coming Storm. I recommend it if you want to know the mainstream perspective of alternative media conspiracy. And these are all interpretations that you have to look at from their perspective. So everyone here should know what truthers think of mainstream. But if you really want to know what mainstream thinks of truthers, you got to read Mike Rothschild. Anyway, he claims here he lost his house in the Eaton fire. And he says if you want to support him, buy his books. This is an interesting one all around. I'm looking at this closely. I think he's an interesting individual to follow. But these fires, the LA fires, are just a reflection of what we were expecting, more or less, from the greater media environment, replete with all the usual predictive programming, concurrent programming, celebrity involvement, and agendas. However, it raises the question of how much collateral damage is the PSYOP entertainment complex willing to inflict. And I don't operate under the presupposition they care necessarily, but nor do I fall into the appeal to motive and just assume that they are reckless or don't care at all and therefore would have no reservations against killing people. But I'm looking at controlled demolitions in particular, and I'm not accusing this person of crisis acting. However, he was someone who spoke at Congress about the Q movement, so he's not some nobody in this arena of ideas. So I just find it fascinating that he has a particular and specific connection to this particular event. And I'm not calling it fake. There has to be some nuance here, and I think we have to be steadfast in rejecting low information disbelief, low information non-belief. You should know why you don't believe something beyond just a hand wave or incredulity. You have to at least make an effort to understand the other side's perspective on your side. That's why I recommend his books. Not saying that I agree with anything he says. He's got tremendous blind spots, and he's a mainstream media fundamentalist. But to understand the compartments, I listen to Woketown podcasts, I listen to Trutherville podcasts, and Normieville stuff. And you can appreciate that these are all different vantage points. And none of these vantage points ever address or even acknowledge the big elephant in the room, which is media fakery. Visual lies. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's inescapable. It's incontestable. People are not ready for it. All right, let's see here. Let me scroll through my IPR points of interest. Yes, Trump orders Iran obliterated. If they kill him, he'll be at the Super Bowl. Predictive programming for Trump at the stadium getting shot. We talked about press passes en route. IPS Insider issue 1 en route, issue 2 in production. And one of the lead articles is going to be Garrett Ziegler's Dead Cat. Russia gears up for space war. Gaza. We'll talk about that. Evidence of irrelevance. Tim Pool. Tim Pool used to get swatted. Then Nick Fuentes kind of upped the ante here, and he got nearly assassinated. So that's the next thing. And now Tim Pool's claiming that he's getting threats of beheadings and worse. And this is from a Canadian. If we get annexed, we will find you. Your docs are all over the internet. We will hog tie you and blank your... This is bad stuff. And behead you in front of her. And then we'll sell her into slavery. Have a nice day, you Yankee blank. If you try to annex us, we'll behead every single one of you. You bald-headed blank, 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 blank. So this is Tim Pool posting a message he got from someone who goes by 1812 skinheads at proton.me. I'm saying it's a self-inflicted wound. I think he made it up. I think he wrote this up, some self-generated fan fiction, in order to make himself look like a victim. I don't believe this is true. Nobody wants to chop Tim Pool's head off. Nobody cares. I'm suggesting that the instant you start getting swatted or death threatened, I think it's an indicator that you're probably irrelevant. Especially if you flaunt that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if someone death threatened me, I'm like, okay, they're going outside of the rules. You know, they're outside of the law. They're crossing a lot of lines. I wouldn't be so flippant about posting it online. I would just go straight to the FBI with it. So I find these to be very questionable. Just like with Garrett Ziegler and company. If somebody murders a cat and has a threat and puts it on the front porch and they don't bother to file a police report, I mean, it's just a cheap way to get clicks. And I'm concerned about the cat. And as I said, I talked to the police chief there, and there is nothing. No reports were made. So my second issue now, IPS Insider issue 2, I'll have an article here, and it is going to be targeted. In fact, this article targeted at anyone who cares about animal rights and who might have an axe to grind against, Trump, because this was a Trump aide, and I think it should be a big story that somebody who worked for Donald Trump may have killed a cat for clicks in order to promote his blog, to raise money for his legal defense for hacking Joe Biden's son's computer. I don't side with Hunter Biden. I don't side with Joe Biden. I don't side with this individual either. I mean, I'm just involved in this somewhat indirectly. And I'm concerned about Cat Doe. I want to get justice for Cat Doe. This is who's going to nuke Seattle. Let's talk about this for just a moment, since history rhymes, doesn't repeat. The Base is a neo-Nazi accelerationist paramilitary group formed in 2018 by Ronaldo Nazzaro, and it's active in the United States. The Base is also what Al-Qaeda translates to, and that is the broad-based militant Islamist organization founded by OBL. So the Base and the Base. The significance here goes deeper, and it has to do with the 9/11 and 6/11 connection. And we often talk about the 6/11, how it's been connected with right-wing. They used 6/11, Armor of God. Timothy McVeigh killed 6/11. Trump was shot at 6/11, but it's been a reoccurring theme, and it even goes into the whole right-wing getting a hold of the nuke scenario. But if you look at the numbers, 9/11 and 6/11, it's an inversion. And I connect it like this. 9/11, external terrorists. 6/11 has always referenced the internal domestic threat. And I've made the connection here as well between the radical extremism in America as typified by QAnon-aligned terrorists, the ones who January 6th us, and how they connect in many ways to the idea of radical Islamists. So you have the QAnon radicalized basement dwellers and incels. And these would correlate with the the ones who hide in caves, who are sexually repressed jihadists in a holy war against the great Satan. So the incel, the jihadist, great Satan, deep state, what's the difference? There's no difference. And I've noticed other trends within far alt-right where it gets to become very much aligned with the values of radical Islam. So I'm just pointing out here that this is a manufactured group. Again, the base. And then we have extremism.edu. This is an article here. Power grid threats have risen. Anti-government groups in the past 2 years have used online forums to attack critical infrastructure. So this has been a reoccurring theme. And just recently, there were 2 big articles about ChatGPT being used to assist right-wing terrorists in discovering ways to attack the power grid. And then the individual who drove his Cybertruck to the front of Trump Tower and blew it up, he was also said to have been aided and abetted by AI. So there's a connection here I'm seeing that is being generated here, and it kind of ties into the danger of misinformation. Like misinformation, hate speech, the madness, disease X, this is causing the violence. Well, now they're adding on to it AI, which is just information. So information itself needs to be regulated. And now that they can use AI, it makes their hate speech and their hate memes all the more virulent. We have to do even more to censor it. And Elon Musk is a perfect example of it. And I've said for some time, he's a fall guy for free speech. That he's not really there to protect free speech. His whole point is to make the case for the rest of the world to censor us, to have a consensus agreement that we're too loud, that we let too much go. And then here's Elon Musk at the presidential podium throwing the Sig Heil Roman salute. I mean, that's pretty blatant gaslighting when they say that he was just being, exuberant, that he didn't really mean it, which is a silly excuse like that. What, Henderson Solomon, the black white supremacist school shooter? It's like, well, should we just say he was just a little autistic and exuberant? He didn't mean any of the stuff that motivated him. At a minimum, it needed to be appreciated for the dog whistle quality of it, of the gesture. And that school shooter did make that gesture. So these things are not disconnected. And again, to go back to The Madness, which was the #1 movie at the time, which is why I brought it up, in The Madness, the Elon Musk-esque character is specifically financing the promulgation of memes that turn people violent. And this is what they call, quote, the madness. And this all ties in to what we've seen in the last couple of years with the rage virus stuff, like 28 Days Later, the apes, all the monkey god symbolism. It's tied into this general theme of a rage virus, something you can catch that turns you violent by looking at a screen. So it's been a building narrative, but we're certainly seeing now the correlations being made there. And what I'm saying is that they've been telling this story for years, but they're communicating it in such a way that nobody misses it now. And they're getting a greater consensus agreement that that Musk needs to be stopped. He's too close to power, and look what he's done. One rich individual can destroy entire systems. And I've heard arguments from Woketown podcasts against unfettered capitalism and billionaires and how billionaires shouldn't even exist because they're such a threat to the environment, because they're such a threat to entire systems, including cyberspace. So you have cyberspace, low Earth orbit. Elon Musk destroyed them both. Why? Well, because he's the richest man on Earth. And this is all meant to suggest that the West needs to sink, that the West is the bad guy here, that we're the outlier, that we are the disproportionately the cause of most of the problems in the world. So I say he's a fall guy. I don't think this is coincidence. U.S. Homeland Security report warned that extremists have been developing credible specific plans to attack electricity infrastructure since at least 2020. So you can translate this into rehearsals. These are rehearsals. These psyops are just, in a very real way, a preparation for what they're going to be inflicting on us later. I actually have a pretty extensive mind map that correlates and connects Turner Diaries to Timothy McVeigh, the blackout scenario, and Charlie Manson's Helter Skelter, and how all of this connects to Kanye West, Nick Fuentes, the Turning Point USA far right. I mean, it's something I mapped out a little while ago. I'll probably go over this in detail later, but what we're seeing unfold is a story, and it's the white nationalist 9/11, and the code has been 6/11 for some time. You know, I'm not big into gematria and numerology, but we do pay attention to the code attached to various PSYOP scenarios, and there's a consistency to it that allows us to make certain predictions. And if you've been listening for a while, you know the significance of 33, 42, 6/11, none of this, or 119, and it's all just because it's so consistent. And the consistency is what I find most intriguing. This is something I mentioned last week, and I'm just going to briefly go over it. I talked about this on the phone with JL, but the actor Giancarlo Esposito plays an Obama proxy. So I talk about actors in movies who represent somebody in the, quote, real world. So, for example, Robert De Niro foreshadowing something Trump does later. Biff Tannen, a Trump character. And this has been a reoccurring theme. In Civil War, the Brave New World, the Captain America movie, the president played by Harrison Ford, he turns into the Red Hulk. Yeah, he's Trump, and the Red Hulk is MAGA in its final form. But that movie had a trailer that came out right before Trump was shot at, and the trailer had the president getting shot at. So I'm saying Harrison Ford in this movie is a predictive programming proxy for Donald Trump. When Robert De Niro played Senator Laughlin and he gets shot by the machete character who then gets his ear blown off, that scene shows that, yes, Robert De Niro was foreshadowing Trump. So I'm talking about these movie parallels to real world events. So in this case, though, this particular actor has an interesting role here because, one, as I mentioned here, I'm just going to go through a few of them. He's Sidewinder in the new Captain America Brave New World, one of the villains. So he's the antagonist to the president, to the Red Hulk, to the MAGA. So the antagonist to the MAGA is this actor. Now we go up, Megalopolis, he plays the mayor who orchestrates the failed assassination attempt of Caesar, who represents Trump. And the actor himself even says here in statements that Megalopolis was very much aligning with what was happening in the presidential campaign. New Rome, make Rome great again. The Trump connections are obvious. But he's the antagonist to the Trump character in Megalopolis and in Captain America, Brave New World. Now, both Megalopolis came out in the summer, and the trailer for Brave New World came out conspicuously close to the shooting. So both of these movies are also connected to the actual shooting, and timing-wise. And to me, that's highly significant. So it's not just the actor, and he's opposite the Trump character, but the timing of it. The next one, this movie called A Man in Full. And in Man in Full, it's the Chicago mayor, again, recurring theme, the mayor. And this mayor, obviously, this guy represents Obama. Now, in this A Man in Full, Trump is represented by Charlie Croker, and his downfall is orchestrated by the mayor. Different actor, but same exact dynamic, and it repeats the one from Megalopolis. And then Revolution on NBC has an Obama Morpheus tyrant, and this is from 2012. And look who's playing this Obama-esque character, same actor. Now, the connection here is this. In all of these major and recent instances of predictive programming for the Trump head wound, this actor or someone in an exact same dynamic has been present. So it's just noting here that the storylines here track again through various movies. So they're telling the same story through entirely different movies, but it's the same basic components. It's a deliberate synchronization between government-controlled entertainment and government-controlled news. Once you replace the divine fallacy with more mundane explanations, it makes sense. What's behind all these mysterious connections between the news and the entertainment? What's more likely, God or government? If you say God, then you fell for the divine fallacy. It's government. Government co-opted all of the major entertainment, everything. I mean, it's ubiquitous. I use the term monolithic. It's like a monotheistic, theocratic state. Like it's one world view monopoly, one Truman Show for all that we all internalize. Tom103 says they assassinated his mafia don in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a great documentary. I live here. I used to walk by one of Walter White's houses, like frequently. They put orange cones out because people would constantly go up there. There's actually this RV truck that drives around town and does the Breaking Bad tour. So it simulates a meth truck. But there's a number of composites that, if you look at Trump, you've got these various actors who've all foreshadowed his role on the world stage. And he's a Frankenstein as much as Musk is. These are very complex characters. But the individual is real. I'm just saying he's a crisis actor. So we have to shatter the illusion that Trump is a rogue, that he's just a random business magnate. Like, you can't believe their backstories or their own hype. They're totally unbelievable. You're immersed in it. You're in the box. They seem real. But, in 20 or 30 years, it's all going to look so phony. Just to normies, I would imagine. Well, we'll see. Depends on how much deeper we go. I kind of think the plan is total immersion into the metaverse. We'll forget we were ever here on Earth. Sort of like that movie Wall-E, where everyone's in the space ark because they've destroyed the Earth. And up there, the robots do everything for them, so they never have to get out of their chairs. They just stare at the screen and drink their protein Slurpees. They don't have to do anything. And they live longer, and they're just no longer attached to the Earth. And they left because of Directive 113, one of the instances of Pixar's using that specific number to refer to lockdowns. And if you remember, the president gives Directive 113 and he puts a mask on. We're talking about Wall-E. But I'm thinking they could accomplish Wall-E here on Earth. They don't need to send us into some space ark because the environment is no longer hospitable to human life. They just have to convince us to lock down. And then a few generations of that, and we're Morlocks, like H.G. Wells. You got the Eloi on top and the Morlocks on bottom, and that's more likely the plan. You're more likely to be a Morlock, or we are, a few generations down than blobs in space. And that movie, by the way, Wall-E, has this space ark ship, and it has a HAL 9000 like robot called Otto that has total control. So they let AI take control of everything, puts us on autopilot. So there's got to be a connection there. HAL 9000, you can't separate AI as a theme from this whole thing. So there's that. But if you haven't seen Wall-E, it has a number of interesting subtexts. Specifically, Noah's Ark is retold in the science fiction context, and it ends up with an agrarian communist revolution. They get back on Earth and decide to throw away the technology and become farmers, and to stop exploiting the underclass, the robots. So here's Trump. If they did that, they would be obliterated. I've left instructions.
Your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated.
They would be obliterated. There would be nothing left.
That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated.
Okay, good to know. Saw one of these in my neighborhood. deny, defend, depose, and there are nationwide protests organizing right now. And I had said at the when it came out, when this Luigi Mangione PSYOP came out, I said, what they're likely doing is they're going to start agitating the left to channel all their rage because of Trump and Musk. And they're going to be, and you know what's interesting? In the madness, they imply that the Musk character stole the election, that his influence over the internet and all his money somehow allowed the bad guys to win. They don't say it explicitly, but it's between the lines. It's not hard to see, especially if you have it decoded in advance. If you haven't seen The Madness, Laura Loomer has a parallel. The character is Lauren Jennings, who dies. They give her a nerve agent of some kind. It simulates a heart attack. Stu Peters, and this is a great, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's terrible, but the Stu Peters-esque character, Mark Simon, gets hacked to pieces. And it turns out that he's not killed by the BLM guy they scapegoat the crime on, but he's actually, his death was financed by the Musk character because the Stu Peters character was going to expose how close they were, how they texted to each other. So it would have been a major blow to the other guy's public image. Kind of interesting. Made me wonder about the assassin going to Nick Fuentes' house, how that story also kind of parallels. Because the movie's about right-wingers and the CEO, like right-wing Nazi extremists getting killed, CEO getting killed, 3D printed guns. Luigi used a 3D printed gun. Luigi's hood, a reference to Robin Hood, which again is steal from the rich, give to the poor, class warfare. There's a lot of symbolism encoded into that whole thing. But anyway, I'm just showing you how even in my neighborhood, and I have this flyer, I was going to put it on eBay, I get deny, defend, oppose, and it says at the bottom here, no war but class war. If you recall, in the Joker, the poster said, kill the rich. Like, kill the rich was a reoccurring theme. And when he killed the rich guys, he was made into a hero. So the people that saw him as a hero put clown masks on. Just like all around the world, the people who saw Luigi as a hero started dressing like him. And they have Luigi lookalike contests. Austin 108 says, Israel Prime Minister gave Trump a golden pager after all those pagers exploded. Yeah, that does seem ominous. It just, there's nothing about that doesn't suggest implied death threat. I mean, it's got to be a joke. Okay, I also made these Luigi. Again, Luigi, it's a mashup of Luigi and Che Guevara. I made these available also on pins at the IPS shop. So if you go to ips.monster and you want to order your Luigi Mangione Luigi pens, they sell in batches of 5 different colors. And again, I generated this image using AI, but I'll put a link in the chat. I don't support the killing of CEOs, but I think this is an interesting phenomenon. It's just a meme. And it's also just important to keep in mind that even though these events are faked, people respond to them as though they are real because they're brainwashed. And it reveals quite a lot about people's character. You know, it's very revealing. It's like a confession, like a confessional. You could never get someone to confess what's in their heart if it's that dark. Like, I have it in me to murder somebody out of class envy. Like, nobody's going to say that. But then something on TV happens, a simulated thing, and their opinions just come out. And you're like, wow, they see it's safe now to just come out and say it. Let's kill all the CEOs. And suddenly it's like, okay, it's acceptable. And it seems like that's what all they need is a signal. And soon they're going to get the signal it's time to start burning trash cans. And that's going to happen. And we will have reporters there. And if you want to get an IPS press pass, they're going to be available here at the latest on the 18th. But you'll be the first to know if you're subscribed to the newsletter. I'm scrolling through my comments. I believe we've covered everything. There's quite a lot more, but there always is. Again, if you want to send me any cult literature, my P.O. box is listed at ips.monster. And if you have anything to add to the tabloid, if you want to be a contributor in any way, I do have a specific Discord server set up for that purpose. So the main Discord server that we used to use kind of outlived its purpose and was actually counterproductive because we do have a purpose here and our standards were not really enforceable. But here we have a project that we're directed on and it's a publication. So if you want to contribute art, writing, or if you have a podcast, if you have even music to promote, it's as simple as putting an image, a QR code, and then people who have the publication can download whatever it is that you have. And the press passes will be, like everything else, the Insider, they'll be made available and sent to your inbox. You'll get a newsletter announcement. So they're not there right now, but they're in the mail. So they're technically in circulation. And once you have a press pass, you're considered essential. You may not know this, but media is considered essential, which took a lot of us by surprise because you think that they're like the least important people. But no, they're essential, more essential than anything for some weird reason. And it makes sense now. It makes sense when you realize they're the front lines of the PSYWAR, of perception management. So it makes perfect sense. But if you carry a press pass, you're considered unlockdownable, something of a superpower. You're essential. So you'll definitely be in the know. Those are en route, and this is Autohoaxology by Symbia. Have a great evening. Appreciate all the comments, and we'll start much earlier tomorrow so I can actually take calls.
Chemtrails, I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, Autohoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading Autohoaxology.